All right. Thanks for joining. Hi, I'm Alexandra, one of the group fitness instructors, and today I'm talking about indoor cycling, all about it, and then also touch a little bit on um, biking and outdoor cycling too. So yeah, indoor cycling is definitely very popular, and I know we normally offer it. It's one of my passions that I didn't found later on after getting into group fitness with Zumba and dance fitness, and then discovering cycling. Totally aside from my background of dance. So for me, I'll just personally say how I got into it. So for me, having that kind of musical dance background, and has how I connect to music, and it's what motivates me the most when I exercise, which is why I decided to do Zumba first. But when I tried cycling, it's also at a class, so a stationary indoor cycling class is all driven by the music too. And so for me, I absolutely love the thrill of not only just exercising or pedaling, but also taking a ride through the music. Um, and it doesn't always have to be an energy level that's up here in terms of music. It doesn't have to be EDM. It doesn't have to be, your most exciting um, music out there. I have some classes that I did Christmas music and I did Michael Bublé and I did Broadway. So it can vary your levels of intensity and your level of your the mood, the tone of your music. Unlike Zumba, for example. So that's why I got into it, and I absolutely love the workout itself in the lower body. Um, yes. Okay. So just going into a little bit basics about cycling. So spin classes are often they can be as short as actually 20 minutes, which we've never offered that, or as long as 90 minutes. Typically, we would offer 45 minutes. We used to offer an hour, but you won't really see 90 minutes is a little is definitely pushing the limits a little bit. You don't see that as much. But what's really fun about cycling and that we had done, prior to the pandemic, was combining it with whether it was a 45-minute class or a cycle and sculpt, combining the cycling workout afterwards with a sculpt or weight training or core conditioning component, whether that was like part of the hour long or part of the an extra 15 minutes that you could actually come into without being part of the cycling, or just part of the 45 minutes, which I often did with weights afterwards. Since cycling is indoor cycling, so you are focusing on targeting your lower body, your glutes, your quads, your hamstrings, your everything, and while engaging your core. So I know there's a lot of mainstream exercise companies out there, and they really try to make cycling a full body workout in terms of adding push ups on the bike or any upper body um, choreography variations, which sounds really cool. And you may think, it may feel like it is working out your upper body or any target areas. However, it's actually not. And depending on how many times you are um, both pedaling your feet in an intense way along with moving your upper body can actually be harmful later on down the road, in terms of your posture, your back, your alignment, and the harsh intensity of your feet pedaling. You're not supposed to move your upper body actually while you are in a stationary bike or at a bike in general. You can't really move your body in a road bike, but cycling, you're not supposed to move your upper body, and that's based on anatomy and physiology. Um, you can look up the American Exercise or the American Council for Exercise ACE, AFA, any of those major exercise groups, and they will have literature on this. So a lot of these companies like SoulCycle and cycle bar. I mean, I'm not trying to throw them in the garbage or anything. And they can have definitely, I'm sure they have different variations of class types within cycling. However, the science has proven that focusing on the lower body while you're on the bike only is how you're going to most effectively um, train the lower body and produce results and effectively engage your core and get your heart rate up. Um, so when you add the upper body, your alignment, your positioning is not really made for that. Um, yes. So other than that, okay. There's obviously different types of ways that you can practice cycling that is not going into your traditional class, and obviously that's not an option for a lot of people. I mean, I know there are some gyms open, but it's not, it's not, definitely not the only option or the safest option right now, considering the world, the pandemic. So Pelotons, Nordic track bikes, and associated at home um, cycling, indoor cycling programs are obviously great ways to engage that. And while you're having a virtual class or a virtual trainer guide you, you kind of have everything set up for you, which is great. Um, what is important is to know that your how comfortable you are on the bike definitely is a factor in how effectively your workout will be and how healthy it will be on your body. So making sure that you're not too far up against the handlebars or too far away, you're not reaching, um, is good. So, and you always want to think about having the correct posture, like a perfect posture. So whatever position you're in, if you're just in first position, so you have your hands closest to the middle and you're sitting on the bike, I would totally show you, but I don't have a stationary bike at my where I am. So you have a straight back, and then you might come out of the seat stand in second position, so you're holding on to the outside of the lower area of the bars. You still have a straight back, and then you go on to maybe third position or 2.5, which is in between. But third position, if you go all the way up and you're standing, you still have a straight back and your shoulders are down. So those things are really important because oftentimes if you're not set up correctly, which again, I would give a full demo of how to set up like I do in my classes, but I don't have a bike here. But making sure you're not too close to the bars or too far away is so important, because oftentimes when you are too close or you're too far away, it's really easy to kind of compensate and start to curve your back into a C, or put your shoulders up. That is often really common with being too close to the bike, because you're kind of scrunching up a little bit. So you want to keep the shoulders down because that helps your posture. And you don't want to build tension that excess tension that's not going to help your body or your workout. Um, yes. So, um, yeah, so that's a little bit of the positioning that I wanted to talk about. And some of the benefits include that anybody can do it. So I know there's a lot of controversy out there that, if you're not somebody who has been working out or consider yourself like nowhere near in shape, um, attending a spinning class or doing a Peloton or any sort of, programming is not a barrier for you at all. Anyone can do it. I mean, obviously it can be a little intimidating. Maybe that's different, but you should not feel intimidated. And really, I know there are a lot of classes out there that might be like beginner, intermediate, or advanced. But a spinning class is actually not science. I mean, the science, again, it goes back to the science. And I didn't say this before, but spinning.com from Mad Dog Athletics, that's also where you can find this information that I referred to in the science. Um, so yes, so there isn't beginner, they're not supposed to be beginner, intermediate, and advanced cycling classes. So you are actually in control, even though the instructor is going to be telling you how to ride, how to set, how much resistance to put on, how to take off, and what RPM range you should be in, or what your cadence is. You're actually still in control of your ride and your body and all the factors that contribute to the workout. Um, so what I mean by that is that basically, um, based on the recommendations of the instructor, you might be going on a hill, so you are increasing resistance periodically during maybe the first minute of the song, or in the first half of the song, whatever it might be, or for 15 seconds of the song before a sprint. But the instructor, I mean, hopefully, is giving you a kind of target area of how much resistance you should be adding. So give me one turn, give me 2 to 3 turns. But you don't actually, and hopefully they use the correct language, and fitness language with classes and instructors and trainers is really important, but unfortunately not everybody has the perfect language that's the most accepting of everybody and at their levels, meeting them at their level. So if you say we're turning up two rotations to the right, I don't know what I was 2 rotations to the right, turning up our resistance 2 turns. If you're new to cycling, if you have not done a lot of lower body training or running, or even just cardio, because it is cardio, even though you're not running or dancing or jumping, it is, your heart rate is increasing, which we'll talk about later. I always lose my train of thought, I don't know why. I think about, I'm picturing the real cycling classes, which I haven't actually been to since March. But anyways, back to what I was saying. So you're actually in control how much. So for that instructor or people who have been attending the class regularly, 2 turns might be ideal, or it might be like the goal, and like that the 2 turns really will push the limits in terms of getting up that hill, and with the RPM range that the instructor is also saying they should be in. So if they're in between 80 to 120, which is typically where you're doing a hill, rates per revolutions per minute. That's what RPM is. So if you're doing 80 in between 80 to 120, 120 revolutions per minute. I'm sorry, that is a sprint. What am I saying? I'm so sorry. That is a sprint. We're doing hills. So hills is 40 to 80. It's been a while. Okay. So 40 to 80, if you're in your hill for 40 to 80 RPM, revolutions per minute, and you know how things feel, and you know that 2 is your sweet spot, or you can go a little more, or you have never really gone that much, and that that's going to be a stretch for you. That's something that you can gauge kind of before you even start turning the knob. And so as you're a beginner and you're learning the ropes, and you don't really understand how resistance is affecting your body while pedaling, the most important thing is to ease your way quarter by quarter, half turn by half turn. Doesn't have to be a full turn, or even in between a quarter and a half turn, and seeing how you're able to take that resistance in, maintain your form, your posture, your legs, your hips are forward, your shoulders are down, and then reap the benefits of making it harder, putting more resistance on. So if you do find that it is too much, or you significantly, for example, in a sprint, that which is 80 to 120, messed that up before, sorry. So if you're in a sprint and you're getting to the point where in the sprint, the instructor tells you to increase that resistance, and you are finding that your legs are slowing down dramatically, and you just cannot keep up with you're below the range. So maybe you were in 100 RPM before you started adding the resistance, then you find yourself maybe even below 80, or like approaching 80. That might be too much resistance, and that's okay. Because it is a sprint, so we're not, the whole point of the structure of our classes, and the methodology behind even having, spinning classes and um, to music is that, we're in control of when and how much and when and how much resistance you're putting on and to what speed. So you still want it to be a sprint. If it's you're putting on that much resistance that you're not able to handle that, that's of course fine. But if it's going to become somewhat of a hill when it's supposed to be a sprint, um, you're not actually doing the workout that was designed for you by the instructor. The point is that in that point in the song or in the music, in the class, that was the time for a sprint. Um, and there are benefits to putting on that, thick resistance training, turning it up, and then letting your legs kind of go loose a little bit while maintaining control. Yes. So that's one thing that was really important about thinking you're a beginner or that like you may not be able to. If you do have some knee issues, I will say you might want to be cleared by a doctor, of course. Of course, not literally everyone can do it, but knee issues, yeah, maybe you want to look into that and get clearance or have, professional advice, medical advice. It's a unique experience. It is a unique experience. So in the beginning of this webinar, I talked about some of the other mainstream companies out there that may do things that are not always safe and maybe more trendy or appear that they actually are more effective than the traditional cycling or indoor cycling classes, but they're not. We talked about the upper body. So it is a unique experience where you're probably going to have a different type of class, whether it's from different instructors or even from, instructor week to week, different class planning. And of course, between different studios, not everything is going to feel the same. There might be different emphasis points. So one day might be focusing more on resistance, one might be more about sprinting. Also, where you might find some red flags are some of the mainstream companies that push the limits in terms of 120 RPM. So you're just a general rule. Again, you can look it up on spinning.com from Mad Dog Athletics. If you go over 120 RPM, revolutions per minute, it's not recommended at all. 120 is really the cap of where you should be at any resistance level. So yeah, outdoor cycling, and I'm not going to speak too much to it, is and road biking is not the same thing. But in indoor cycling, there is structure, there's organization, and there's limitations to your speed, so that again you're having the most safe and effective workout. But sometimes classes will become about the race, like the actual race, meaning who can go the fastest, what's your RPM, and instructors motivating people, positively yelling at them to go faster and go faster and go faster. And it's not even just about the speed, the RPM, but it can also be the speed of which you are performing jumps. So a jump is where you transition from one position. So it can be seated in first position, hands closest to the middle, the lower bars. And then you transition to standing. So you come out of the saddle and then you're in second position. So your hands are on the outside of the lower bars. So you move your hands and then you brought your bottom out of the saddle. So the whole, music, that's also a purpose too, where choreographing, or I wouldn't say choreographing, I don't want to use that word, but planning your classes to the music, to the beats, to the counts, to the changes, to the chorus, to the verses, is such an effective tool for us to have indoor cycling classes. That's why we use music. It's always music based. Um, but also you have to be careful with you're where you are using a faster tempo versus a slower tempo. And it's not just black and white, like a slower tempo is for a hill, a faster tempo is for a sprint. That's still true, of course. But, once you add in jumps, once you add in even a sprint too, once you add in variations and transitions, you really do have to, it's the instructor's responsibility to plan the class effectively and safely, to the counts while you're making transitions, because so you're going from first position in the saddle to second position outside of the saddle standing. You are not, it's the same way I've been saying, you're always maintaining your posture, you're having good form, you're engaging your core. So you're transitioning your body and, you're in this case, most really it's driving from the hips and the lower body to bring you out of the saddle, and the arms kind of follow. So that is really important, that you're doing that also in a controlled way, and it's not a race, especially for jumps. Especially for jumps, it's really not a race, because I've seen it where you are instructors. Again, it's keep going, go faster, like you got it, whatever it is. Don't try to beat me, whatever they use. And you're in a way kind of thrusting your hips, your lower body in and out of the saddle. So that is not effective at all. And you're not, I mean, it can be dangerous for sure for your back, for your pelvis, but also you're not really reaping the benefits of properly engaging your core and your quads to lift you out of the seat, lift you back into the seat, into the saddle, controlled. You're in a controlled way. And with the resistance, because you're still having resistance. So maybe a little bit sporadic. If you're leading with one hip to get you up faster and to get you back down faster, that's not good. Definitely not healthy or safe or effective. Yes. So it is a unique experience, but again, I understand that it's a little hard to find those red flags, and people already have perceptions about companies like SoulCycle, and you may not want to change that, and that's okay. But again, thinking about it might not necessarily be what, specifics of what I'm saying. So the 120 RPMs, or how fast are you going in and out of the saddle. So you might not have those things in mind when you go to a class or you do a program that kind of pushes those limits, or you're not sure about. But the important thing is that you listen to your body. So, and again, you really should feel any transition, any extended period of time, 30 seconds, 32 counts of 8 of sprinting, of hill work. You should be feeling it somewhere in your lower body, and a little bit in your abs too. So again, if it feels strange or you're straining yourself to do something, that's when you know to stop. So again, I'm not going to say follow exactly my advice, and I know that's it, and everyone has had good experiences, in different ways that maybe are different from what I'm saying. But again, listen to your body, because that's also a huge thing when I go back to if I go back to talking about how there's no beginner, intermediate, advanced cycling class if you're in control of your ride, but also your instructor doesn't know your body. And also, if you're in an in-person class, they also can't really exactly, I mean, yes, I can definitely see some red flags of shoulders or twisting, but they don't know what's hurting or what's not hurting. And it's not a class where you're being trained. So maybe HIIT boot camp, or just a personal training session. a demo. The instructor may walk around, but that's not enough, I would say. So you really have to take ownership of how your body's feeling too, and try to have fun with it. Again, it's so easy to make this indoor cycling trend, and it's so easy to make it a race and who's the fastest, who's the best, who's the strongest. But it's not about that at all. It's about the lower body workout, and it's about your connection to the music and your body. I mean, maybe not the music, not everyone connects to music, but for some, they connect to music, like me. Yes. So, yes. So some of the like interval trainings that we will have in our classes is heart rate training. So I mean, not every bike, but most bikes have heart rate monitors where you can see your heart rate. So sometimes when we program classes or songs, because everything is really based on songs, our methodology behind, obviously a choice for that song, because it's how a song is structured can be easier to program hill versus to a sprint, or vice versa, or something totally different. So it really is, for instructors, song choice is huge. And that's more like the rhythm and the beat and the BPM, the beats per minute, not necessarily like one genre or the other. But so that might be based on heart rate, in terms of getting your heart rate up to a certain level and then bringing it down and bringing it up again and bringing it down. So if you think about high intensity interval training, you have a lot of exercises that are high intensity, of course, that you're doing for maybe a certain amount of time. So 5 minutes, you're doing burpees, or 5 minutes, you're doing mountain climbers. So you bring your knees to the chest while you're in a plank. Or you're doing a Tabata style. So that's a certain time that you're on. So you're doing that exercise, or in this case, cycling, you're doing a sprint, or you're pedaling to a certain degree. And then 10 seconds, or not 10, any second, depending on the ratio, and then a certain amount of seconds off. So a lot of times it's 30 seconds on, 15 seconds off, 20 seconds on, 10 seconds off, just kind of keeping that 50-50 ratio. Those are just common things, but it can obviously vary. So that's something you'll see in high intensity interval training too. You'll see 30 seconds on, 15 seconds off. So again, on the bike, again, I've said this a lot, but you're focusing on the lower body only. But that's the point, is that it is a little bit more dynamic, and conditioning and toning for the lower body, the hip area, the glutes, the quads, and even the calves too. Yep, so that's kind of our methodology behind all that. And then there's clearly a way that we warm up and we cool down, which is really important. So hopefully, if your class is not just 100% cycle, if there's a like sculpt or like core conditioning component, or I don't know, anything else, there's a lot of things out there nowadays, that it comes after. I mean, unless you're doing cycling intervals in between high intensity interval training exercises off the bike, but that is definitely something you could see in a cross training type of class, or even any high intensity interval training class too, any HIIT class. But if you're doing a full class, a full cycling class, if you have 45 minutes or an hour, hopefully, given the intensity of the exercise, the resistance, the speed, and the sprints and hills, everything that's going on there's a method behind the structure of that. So hopefully your upper body or core or sculpt component comes after your ride, and that you're not stopping in the middle to lift those weights or do some planks or crunches. Um, and I know a lot of times people tend to not want to stay. I mean, everyone might not be able to stay for a class for the entire period or have to leave early or the class is running late. But having one song after your last song of material, real material, so one song to be able to just slow down and pedal at a neutral resistance level between 40 and 80 RPM, which is where your hills and anywhere that's not a sprint. So there is going to be best for cooling down and just letting your legs go. Just pedaling, just enjoying it, just letting everything unwind, letting the lactic acid release, especially if you ended on a sprint in the last song. Yeah, so that's cooling down. Really, really important. So again, I'm not really sure. There's a lot of things out there with programming. So if you're doing anything like I'm sure Peloton's great. I haven't tried it, but any, at home programs, if you see maybe a lacking of a cool down, definitely, you don't need an instructor to tell you how to cool down. Stay at your neutral resistance level. And that can be depending on your totally up to you and your body and what that feels like. And just pedal consistently. Don't start and stop, and get to the end of the last song. So yes, let's see if I missed anything. I don't think I did. Oh, so I'll just talk briefly about cycling shoes and kind of the best practices about that. And also if you have bikes that are not have something wrong with them. I wouldn't say broken, but they have something wrong with them. So yeah, the best thing you want to do hopefully is not compromise anything for your workout. So of course you want to have closed-toed sneakers. If you have cycling cleats, that's even better, where you can clip into the bike. But using just regular sneakers to put your feet in the cages also is totally fine too. But you want to make sure that the cages and the strap is not too tight on your foot. You don't need to be super tight. And if it's a little loose, your foot is not going to come out unless it's really loose. I remember when I was first trying cycling, I didn't have any cycle cleats. And I was like, oh, I got to tighten this up and I got to be ready for my ride, 45 minutes. And I started to feel the pressure of the cage on like pressing down on the middle of my foot, and that's definitely not good. And it also affects, and again, anything that's not good form wise, even based on this, placement of your feet, it's going to affect your body and your ride and and how safe and effective your workout is. So you got to adjust a little bit, make it comfortable, make it loose, not too loose, but just right. Cycling cleats are great. I definitely try to, if you go to a specific gym or you have a specific bike at home or something like that, definitely try to either ask or look on the company of the bike's website to see what type of cleats clip into that bike, onto those bike pedals, because there's two different ones. But and that I don't remember the names right now. I don't even know if they're it could vary. They have different names, but it's not always a universal thing. So just look and see. And then you can always I think reach out to the company and ask if you don't know. Yes. And what else was I going to say? Best practices. And what else? I just forgot. It's super fun. It's important to hydrate because it is such a cardio-based, heart rate rising class. If the room is not even if it's a cold room, you're going to be sweating and breathing heavily in and out very quickly. and your body's going to need water. So it's really important. That's one thing. Like, yes, you really shouldn't get out of the bike, out of the saddle, like the whole time that you're in a cycling class. But I'd say water is one of the few things where you actually should. Oh, and then that's what I was going to say. Totally just forgot. Before. So the bikes that are a little wonky or have issues with them. So there's, if they're kind of unbalanced for whatever reason while you're pedaling up, like out of the saddle or in the saddle, it might rock back and forth, which I'm not an expert on fixing bikes, so I can't advise you how, but hopefully somebody with that knowledge can help. But definitely telling the instructor, either getting a new bike, if you can't get a new bike, if there's a little like object, like I remember we used to use, what is it called? Business cards, like a stack of business cards to put under the little gap that it comes, like that where that side of the bike comes up, to just level it off. It's really important. Otherwise, an unsteady experience is not good. And then also you're not able to focus on the workout. You're kind of just worried about what the bike is doing. So squeaking or like noises from the bike, generally, I mean, I'm not an expert on the bikes themselves, but generally that is okay. It's definitely very noticeable sometimes, and it's funny, and everyone can hear it even over the music and the instructor. But generally, it's not a car. It's not gonna break down or collapse. It most likely needs some oil, but again, not an expert on the bikes themselves. But that's usually fine. That's totally okay. It's not, meaning it's not going to harm you. The bike is not going to harm you in a way where it's not a safety issue. Okay. And then, so in terms of, I just wanted to briefly talk about, and I've talked about things to look for, whether you're doing a program like by yourself at home or like in a class. But in terms of if you have a bike at home and you want to just cycle by yourself, or if you want to be on a road bike, so there's some important tips to know. And maybe you have a specific goal and you're following a program based on that goal. I'm not sure. I'm really just speaking generally to how to get started with that and how to do that in an effective way, other than what I've already talked about, where you'll be led by somebody else. So, important tips: start slow. There's no need to kill yourself when you start. Even if you're already in good shape, cycling uses different muscles, exactly. So start out nice and easy. And if you are looking at how long, I mean, you can usually see how long, whether it's kilometers or miles, on a bike monitor, or you can even have a phone that tracks, like there's a lot of apps out there where that tracks your mileage, and then same thing while you're on the road. So 2 to 3 miles you want to start with, and try to have fun. You want to have a positive outlook on cycling. It is similar to running, where it's not necessarily busy and jam-packed like maybe dances or any type of workout where you're doing specific exercises with your body and you have to follow them from an instructor or from a trainer. Everyone knows, well, hopefully knows how to pedal. And you kind of fine-tuning how you're pedaling. That's really all you're doing. You're not push-up, you shouldn't be doing push-ups on the bike or doing anything crazy. So how are you pedaling? How fast are you pedaling? To what degree are you pedaling in terms of resistance? But you know how to pedal. So yes, maybe, I mean, everyone has to learn how to ride a road bike, but I'm pretty sure everyone can figure out indoor and stationary bike if you have not rode a bike before. All right, so be safe. More than most sports, cycling, and this referring to road biking, outdoor cycling, can be very dangerous. And I can attest this from a family member who had a serious injury from road biking. Especially if you're on the roads with drivers or not. If you can be in a park And wind, a sudden turn, an animal, a person, something can happen, can appear, just like when you're driving, except it can be very hard to stop, and it's not as easy as pressing the gas, yeah, to stop and braking, like in a car. You, well, first of all, if you are clipped into your bike, that makes it even harder. But even if you're not, um, you do have to kind of lose that momentum a little bit before you're able to actually stop the bike and stop yourself. Otherwise, if you stop too fast, that's why you fall over. Since you're not stationary, there's a sense of balance and control on your body that's being accounted when being on a road bike. Ride during the daylight hours, follow the traffic laws, always yield the right of way, wear bright colors and reflectors. So you see crazy people out there, they're not crazy though, wearing like yellow headbands or like a vest. So they know that, so drivers know that they're there is really important. Wear a helmet. Please wear a helmet. Yeah, just like, unless you're literally biking across the street to your neighbor's house, like wear a helmet like 1,000 million times. Again, my family member, not sure what would have happened if he wasn't wearing a helmet and his injury. Pretty scary. All right, the bike. So, what's the best bike for cycling? So you can start with any bike. It doesn't have to be the latest thing. Um, it can be used. It can be helpful to spray WD-40 on some of the rusty parts so it's greased, and that can eliminate some of the sound and any kind of stalling. And the actual wheels and the gear can move in a swift way, and it's not getting stuck. Um, yes, inflate the tires properly, which I'm not an expert on either, but hopefully you are. Make sure there's no leaks and start with it. And then if it really is an old bike, like really old bike, maybe take it to a bike shop and have it looked at. Yeah, if they need to do anything. So the nice road bikes are lighter with strong frames, thin tires for less friction, so you can go faster. Since again, it's easier the lighter you are to go faster. Since there is that sense of balance and control on your body and the bike. Mountain bikes, yeah, I mean, they're made for going through terrain, going through mountain, going through that. It's not necessary if you're on a road, but it can still work. And definitely important to go slow if you're mountain biking. Definitely. So what's most important is that the bike fits you, which I kind of talked about how to fit yourself on the stationary bike. But the bike should fit your height from the ground to your crotch, in terms of where your crotch is to the saddle. And then if you're going to buy a bike, somebody at the bike shop will help you with this too, specifically. Yeah. And then, yeah, so you don't need fancy gear. I know there's a lot of fancy things out there. I mean, but you do, like I said before, you do need a helmet, and you really should have a water bottle, especially if you're going to go on long rides that are not in your living room on your Peloton. They're 20 miles from where you live. Really try to have a water bottle. There's portable pumps that you can get and attach to a bike just in case you get a flat tire or a slow leak. A floor pump is obviously good at having at home, but some people, well, it's helpful to have a portable pump too, if depending on, of course, your distance. There are people who do 100 miles, so I'm sure it's very, very helpful. A repair kit. So yeah, again, it really, if you're only going a few miles, you don't really need it. But if you're really going for it, maybe a repair kit. So it would have a spare inner tube, two tire levers, a multi-tool, and a little bag that can attach to the bike. Other things that are optional, gloves. I mean, it can be more comfortable. You have a better grip. But yeah, I mean, it's yeah. And if you fall or crash and onto the floor, um, it'll it'll protect the palms of your hands, or probably the top too. But most likely you land like this. So bike computer or a bike monitor. So you don't need it, especially for a road bike, but can be helpful. Gel padded seat. For beginners, riding on a hard cycling seat, and this is not really stationary bikes, this is more road bikes, can be uncomfortable. This gel padding has saved a lot of pain for a lot of people, but experienced riders have said that you get used to it after a while. It's a little bit of breaking in the saddle to your body. It's not necessary. So, but maybe if you think you're going to be more sensitive and you would need that support, maybe. Glasses. So to some, they're a must to protect eyes, block bugs, debris. If it's really sunny, like I am in Florida, yes. Sometimes even if you're driving, it's like the sun is so bright. If I didn't have glasses on, I would not be able to see the road. Yes. Again, it depends where you are and like where you're going. I already talked about shoes and pedals. Lights. So this is a must if you ride outside and it's going to start to get dark, or it is dark, even though it's not really suggested that you ride at night. A light is really helpful. Yeah, and then clothing, briefly go through, which obviously there's very fancy clothing out there, but I'll just say very basic things that I've also learned myself because I was not a road biker before. Well, I'm still not really a road biker. I'm not a serious road biker. I just really stick to stationary bikes. So tight, compressive, active wear that you can sweat through, obviously great. Doesn't have to be, your stereotypical shirt, the zip up thing, and the biker spandex. However, it is important that so if you're going to wear if you're not going to wear leggings, I guess for women, if you're not going to wear leggings, you do want to make sure like the length of your spandex or biker shorts, is in between, or is in between like the mid thigh and then your knee. So they're not necessarily booty. Obviously, they're not booty shorts, but they're not shorter shorts. They're not real spandex, because as you're on the bike, coming out of the bike, or even just when you're road biking, and there's a natural back and forth a little bit. There's a natural friction between your body and the clothes, and then the saddle. Things are gonna move around. Things ride up and down just normally. So it's very uncomfortable. I remember I tried to teach a class in like Nike Pro spandex, and I was like, I don't know what I was thinking. I did not think through this. Also, it's not just spandex. So running shorts, running shorts are not longer. They're not the length of bike shorts. So running shorts, or any loose shorts, or any loose pants at all is not. Loose pants could pass maybe, but it's definitely not ideal. It's not comfortable. And running shorts, again, because they kind of easily move around, they're going to have friction, and it's going to be twisted in different ways every time you come in and out of the bike, or are moving after a while. So tight clothing, or at least a tight bottom. I mean, it can be a loose top. Hopefully sweat resistant, dry fit, but it's up to you. But yeah, definitely tighter bottoms with that length are great. All right, so I think I've covered all the amazing things about indoor cycling. Well, not all of them. Okay, I'll just briefly say what my favorite music is that I like to use for indoor cycling. I mean, I do really like EDM. I'm not like huge on that. I mean, I'm more of in general like my music interests are very like pop and hip hop, very mainstream girly stuff. Um, but I like combining that with some EDM. So you're not just the whole time like at a rave. I like it. I like a little bit of the personality sometimes, and some of the personality that may not be as fast of a BPM, beats per minute in a song, or intense. They make for good jump songs. They make for good cool down, warm up songs, or recovery songs in between a whole class, meaning in the middle of a whole class, not in the same between. Um, yeah, so that's kind of where I go. Not everyone likes it. I know some of it, again, I try to mix it up. I do really like Michael Bublé, so I do have a Michael Bublé playlist. I do have like a One Direction, Green Day, um, 5 Seconds of Summer cycle class that I really like. And the holidays are great. And for me, the one thing I really liked about the musical part of cycling is that you can pretty much, unless it's a very, very still song, you can pretty much take any song and incorporate it into your class theme or just into the class at all, um, which is really fun because it just feels like a different ride every time. Um, Even if your class planning and your methodology of the class structure is the same, it's going to feel different. Um, yeah. All right. So I think that's it. Thanks for joining. If you have any questions, reach out to GW Campus Recreation on any social media. And yeah, have a great rest of your day. Thank you.